In Sweden, you're not allowed to turn on red when you're driving. So when there's a traffic light, you can't turn at a red light, which you actually can in many states here in the US. It took me a while to get used to this. So the first couple of times that I did it here in Minnesota, I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it, I'm turning. And it just felt so illegal. Here in the US, in almost all states, I believe there are some exceptions, but almost all states you can turn on red, meaning when there's a traffic light and you're going to go to the right, you can turn, but only to the right, unless there's a sign that says no turn on red. So this was very confusing at first. I mean, I think I found out about it pretty quickly, but it really did take me a long time to get used to it because, you know, in my brain, it was just like red means stop, red means stop. You know, when you get to a traffic light, you don't even have to think about it. You just automatically hit the brakes and you stop and wait until it turns green. But here you can actually then go up to the red light, stop. You have to come to a complete stop and then look around you, and then if there aren't any cars around, you can actually turn then on red. Now I've gotten so used to it after living here for a long time, so now it's quite the opposite, where when I'm in Sweden I have to be like, don't turn on red, don't turn on red, don't turn on red, because obviously there that's not a thing. And I want to say most of the world it probably isn't, but I did look it up, and there's quite a lot of countries that do allow it in some form or another, but usually it would actually be posted. There will be signs saying you can do it, which here it's the opposite. You're allowed to do it unless there's a sign telling you can't do it. And this is one of those things where it's really nice. I don't really care too much whether you can do it or not, but it helps, like living in a metro area, it helps with traffic flow, definitely, if there's a lot of traffic. But again, if there's too much traffic, you're not going to be able to turn on red anyways. But if there aren't any other cars coming, it's just a really good option. But it's one of those things, it's kind of at your own discretion. And it sucks sometimes because I drive a sedan. So sometimes, like in some intersections, I can't really see that well. So if I can't see if there are other cars coming, obviously I'm not going to go. But then there might be a car behind me that maybe has a better view of things. Maybe they're in an SUV or so, and they start honking. But I'm like, I'm not going to trust some stranger behind me to tell me if I can go or not. There are also certain vehicles, I believe, that aren't allowed to turn on red, and this differs from state to state. Like, I think in some states, school buses can turn on red. Sometimes it might be like company policy, because you will see like the stickers too on some vehicles at the back of them saying no, turn on red, so you don't start honking if they don't go. And I feel like it's one of those things like where I'm more chill, like I'm not gonna honk at people because I'm like, you might see things I don't. I'm not gonna pressure you to turn on red because I don't wanna make you cause an accident, and I hope it's the other way around too with people behind me. You just have to be a little bit extra careful. So welcome back to Fika with Sandra. So today I'm gonna talk about a couple of things that I've gotten used to now after living here for oh man, I've lived here for, it will be 14 years this fall. So over 13 years. So I've gotten used to a lot of things. There's still some things that surprise me too. But let's just focus on the things I've gotten used to. I have some fika today, some coffee and a Moomin mug. And I do want to apologize because this is some very lame fika, to be honest. I have some like dry cookies from IKEA that have been sitting in our pantry for a little bit too long. And I don't really have anything else. And I always want something with my coffee. I don't like drinking coffee just the way it is. Don't tell anyone that. I just put a splash of milk in my coffee, so it's nothing fancy. But I feel like having something with it then weighs up for it being kind of plain, you know? So these are just like these cookies, chocolate filled cookies, like some kind of chocolate cream. These are actually a knockoff of a common or like a really known brand in Sweden called, what is called ballerina. So ballerina kex. IKEA's version is not quite the same, but you know, it will do. And if you didn't watch the last video, my plan is for us to sit down, have a fika. That's when you sit down with friends, you have some coffee, tea, and something on the side. You sit down and you chat and you relax. So my plan is for us to do that while we talk about how life is different in Sweden and the US. Another thing that's quite different here compared to Sweden is how people treat personal space. So I don't know if this is a Midwestern thing or if it's an American thing. But here, if you go to the grocery store and someone's like standing in an aisle, maybe they're like trying to find something. So they're just standing there with their cart looking at the shelf. If you then pass them, so you kind of go just between them and the shelf, but like without touching them or even being close to like bumping into them, you typically say, excuse me. Like, again, even if you don't come anywhere near them, if you just go into their like field of vision, you say sorry or excuse me or something along those lines. I thought this was very confusing at first. I wasn't sure if they were being like passive aggressive and being like, what, am I in the way? Like, should I move? Like, why are you saying this when you aren't even close to bumping into me? Like, I'm not really in your way, so why are you saying sorry? Like, there's nothing to be sorry for. In Sweden, it's quite the opposite, where even if you like literally run into someone, if you bump into someone at the grocery store, you might get an oi, oi. If you're really lucky, you might get an excuse me, but sometimes you might just not get anything at all. People definitely don't apologize for just coming close to another person. So again, I couldn't really figure it out at first, but I think it's really just being nice and like, kind of like, it's not passive aggressive. It's more just saying like, hey, I see you. I see that you're standing there. I see you're trying to find something and now I have to interrupt for 1 second. Or it might not even be that. It might be you're standing at the fridge and someone comes maybe to open the door that's right next to you, not even right in front of you, and you're kind of close to them. But again, not at a point where you'll actually touch them. But I think it's just, being mindful, like giving another person like a heads up to like, hey, I'm here, so that you don't bump into, like if they take a step forward, they know you're there. I actually like this now because it's kind of just a nice way of seeing strangers and being like, hey, I see you. And like, that's all it really is. Like, hey, I see that you're there. I'm gonna walk by you now. Now I actually do like that, and I prefer that to the Swedish way. That's oi, oi, like where you like, doesn't matter if you're at fault or not, you're gonna act like that a person is an idiot and be like, oi. Okay, the third and the last thing that I've also gotten used to now, but I found kind of odd or confusing in the beginning, was how Americans like to use titles, like when referring to people in their professional lives. This is especially true with things like professors, even teachers, or especially doctors. So you would call like your doctor, Dr. Smith, or whatever their last name is. Or like when I emailed my professor, it would be like, you would address them like, Dear Professor Anderson, blah, 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 blah. Or even like younger kids will do this too, not necessarily with titles, but they call their teachers Miss or Mr. So it would be like Mr. Smith or Miss Smith. Only exception is if people tell you it's okay to use their first name. Like I had a lot of professors who said that it was okay to use their first name, so obviously then you can do it. But otherwise, you should always start out by calling them by their title and their last name. This was not a thing in Sweden when I grew up. I think it was more back in the day. Like when my grandparents were young, because I do remember them referring to their teachers like Miss So-and-so and a couple of other like doctors, I believe. And but now, like these days, you don't do it. Like I would only call my teachers in in school, I would call them by their first names. Like in some cases, I didn't even know their last names. Definitely not call them Miss or Mister. Like that would be so weird. No, like that would be weird to do. There might be some professions where you still do that, but I don't know of any. I'm thinking maybe like in the military you maybe still use like last names and titles, but even like in the medical field, if anything, you would call people by their first and last name, but you would not use the title and last name. It's just not the way of doing it. I don't know why this is, but my theory is that in Sweden there's this belief, alla är lika värda, means like everyone has the same worth, and people find this very important. But in a way it's a little bit for show, because you treat some people differently than you do others, so it's not really always true. And I think in Sweden it's really rude to make yourself seem like you're more important than someone else, like whether you're a doctor or whatever you work with. You don't want to make yourself seem special. You would never even come up with the idea of being like telling someone like, hey, don't use call me Dr. so-and-so. It would seem very rude, and people would not like that. And also the other way around, where you don't want to make other people seem more special than they are. And this is something I'm kind of a little torn. I like the idea of treating everyone the same, but you know what? If I'm going to the doctor, you are the expert. You're the one who's put in X amount of years of work. I don't mind calling you doctor, because at that point in time, in that setting, you are way up. You are up high. You are special. So I'm not against using titles. And it's funny too, because Sweden is a monarchy. Would love to talk more about that, but it's kind of just all for show these days anyways. But but we have a royal family, and it's a bit of a double standard, because that's one of the exceptions that I can think of when titles are so important. So if you ever have the honor of meeting a member of the royal family, you are not allowed to, or it's frowned upon to call them you. You can't ask them, how are you doing today? Then it's so important to use their title, so you have to address them by your royal highness. So you have to be like, how is your royal highness doing today? Which I don't hang out with the royal family too much, so I've never really had much of an issue doing that. But it would be kind of hard though, because you're just so used to saying you and not talking about people in the third person, a third person. So that's an exception. But yeah, it took me a while to get used to this, but now I have a pretty good idea of when to use what. But it's funny though, because I got to know this woman. She's a veterinarian, and at first she was my cat's vet, so that's how I got to know her. So I would call her doctor and then her last name. Now she's also become a family friend. And even today, I have a hard time using her first name. I'm still oh, Dr. So-and-so is coming to visit today. It feels weird now to use her first name, even though she's not my cat's veterinarian anymore. She actually doesn't even work as a vet anymore. But now it's gotten so ingrained in my head after living here for so many years. So I've just gotten used to using titles, and I don't really mind it. I feel it's a nice way of showing your respect, especially if it's someone who's put in a lot of work into their profession. It's not gonna hurt calling them by a title if that's what they want.